everybody. Welcome back to Straight Guy Queer Eye. I'm your host, Paul Yen. We are on episode number 20. And if you haven't already noticed, which you wouldn't if you are listening in or on your podcast in your car or on your phone, but we are now also a video podcast on YouTube. I've been thinking about doing or putting Straight Guy Queer Eye on, YouTube for quite a while now, but for a few different reasons, I was hesitating. If you've been listening for a while, you'll know that I am an actor, and I mainly wanted to keep myself off of YouTube to differentiate the two mediums, but after some long and careful consideration and a very, very bad trip on some gummies, I decided to just go for it. So here we are. I have a bad habit of being a perfectionist, but the only way to get this thing started is to just shove that feeling of perfectionism aside and to just do it. So yeah, lighting will be weird, sound might be off, the background might not be perfect like a lot of YouTube channels are, but ultimately the message is the most important thing from this podcast. And I firmly believe that embracing the queer community, among many other things, can make us better people. Now, back to business. You'll notice that I'm kind of looking to the right here. It's because I'm looking at my notes. This is new to me to be doing a video podcast, so bear with me. Okay, so corrections. An important correction from last week's episode, or possible correction. I said that the Fab Five from Queer Eye were 5 men, but I failed to remember that Jonathan Van Ness, I believe, identifies as non-binary. So the Fab Five are 4 men and 1 non-binary person. I think that's how it is. If I read correctly, Jonathan Van Ness is very fluid. Sometimes they'll go by he or she, but most often by they or them. If I am wrong or if you have the right answer, put that down in the comments below for me. Ethics statement. We always start off with an important ethics statement. And since you've been listening, or if you've been listening, it might seem like I come up with this or I memorize this, but I don't. I pre-wrote this, I write this down, and I like to record it every time instead of having a pre-recorded message and just plopping it in, because it's important for me to acknowledge that being straight gives me privileges that the queer community does not get, obviously. I will never fully understand the trauma, the drama, and all of the homophobic nonsense that gay people deal with every single day. I'm not an expert in queer culture, however. I'm not a therapist, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or a doctor. What I am is a person who grew up with queer family and friends who have shaped my life and continue to shape my life in such positive ways. And as the host of the Straight Guy Queer Eye podcast, I'm here to share those experiences as well as introduce people to queer-themed shows that I love in the hopes that they can impact you as much as they have me. More importantly, I'm here to listen and to learn about the queer community and to pass that knowledge on to like-minded people who want to make a difference for the queer community, for themselves, in their own community, and in their own lives. Kind of a jumble there, but that's okay. So, with episode 20 of Straight Guy Queer Eye, we are on the first episode of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 3. The first episode of Season 3 is very different from the previous 2 seasons. RuPaul hosted the entire first episode, and instead of meeting the queens for the first time as they walk into the workroom, RuPaul introduced them through their audition tapes. So the queens, if you don't know, they send in audition tapes to RuPaul's Drag Race. It's reviewed by, I'm guessing, a casting team, and then they select the queens that they want on that season. So anyways, they showed behind the scenes clips of their auditions, clips of the queens talking about their first time in drag, their experience as drag queens. They gave us a tour of, their community, their drag, what they look like out of drag, just to show some personality. Anyways, the queens for season 3 are Manila Luzon. She's from New York City. She's a Filipina. She dated at the time, Sahara Davenport, who was from season 2. Then there's Carmen Carrera. She's from New Jersey. She's since fully transitioned into a trans woman. There's Raja, who grew up in LA. She's an Indonesian American. She's a makeup artist for celebrities. She's been doing drag at that time for 20 years since she was 16 years old. And she calls herself a jet-setting avant-garde supermodel. I do have to make a correction for Raja. She said she wanted to be the first, or she was the first Asian on RuPaul's Drag Race, but she forgot about Angina from season 1 and then Jujubee from season 2. They're both Asian. Anyway, then there's India Farah from Ohio. She started drag at the age of 12, according to her audition video, and started performing in drag at the age of 14. Then we've got Mimi First. She's an NYC queen. She's a big girl. She's self-described as a fat bitch. And then there's Stacey Lane Matthews from North Carolina, who's also a big girl. She's from the Bible Belt. And she said something that I liked a lot. She said, "We're people too, and we deserve respect." Then we've got Yara Sofia. She's from Puerto Rico. She is a staple in the RuPaul's Drag Race world. You'll eventually see her later on in other seasons, not to give anything away. Then there's Phoenix, who is from Atlanta, Georgia. I know, it was a little confusing for me because I wrote Phoenix here and then Atlanta, Georgia, and I was like, wait, is she from Phoenix, Arizona? But no, she's from Atlanta, Georgia. For her, in her audition tape, she was saying that the biggest hardship for being a drag queen is the boys. And no, you freaking homophobes out there, not little boys. She's talking about when she's dating other men. She finds that when she tells them what she does for a living, a lot of them are either turned off by it or, it changes things because not for all in the queer community, but for some, drag queens are looked down upon. And then there's Venus Delight. She's also from LA. She came in through an open casting call that they showed in episode 1 where a bunch of people line up, drag queens come in, and then they get interviewed by RuPaul and Santino. She has like this look where she looks like Cyndi Lauper, Madonna. She's inspired by Grace Jones, Barbra Streisand. And then another queen that came in through the open casting call process was a queen named Delta. She's also a big girl. She's from the city of Norwalk. Shout out to Norwalk, or how come I can't say my own city that I grew up in? Shout out to Norwalk. That's where I grew up and where my parents still live today. And then we've got Alexis Mateo. She's currently living in Florida, but she's originally from Puerto Rico. She realized at the age of 12 that she wanted to be in entertainment. And then our last queen for the season is Mariah, who is also from Atlanta, Georgia. She doesn't do drag for work. She performs in the ballroom circuit, as in ballroom dancing. In case you didn't know, a lot of drag queens perform in nightclubs. They do lip singing, they do entertainment, they do comedy, they dance, they do all sorts of stuff for tips and for money. Okay, that's the introduction of the queens. The things that stood out for me in this first episode is that Carmen Carrera mentioned that she's married to her partner and that she helps take care of her partner's daughter, which is Carmen Carrera's stepdaughter. And this stood out to me because my wife and I don't have a desire to have kids, but I think the fact that Carmen Carrera wanting to be a stepmother to her daughter is doing, a really noble thing and should be celebrated. It's a big deal, I think, in many different ways, because the fact that she's helping to take care of her stepdaughter, there are people, straight people, I might add, who can't bring themselves to do something like that because of their ego or their jealousy for their partner's ex, or they're just incapable. And then there's just the sheer magnitude of becoming a parent. I watch my younger sister and my younger brother and my friends with their kids, and I mean, maybe I'm stating the obvious, but it's a lot of work. Changing diapers, dealing with temper tantrums, endless questions, and of course the responsibility of raising a human being is already, a feat in and of itself. Then you add in the fact that Carmen Carrera is trans and her partner is gay and that they're members of the queer community, obviously, and you just know that they got to deal with the vitriol and hatred from weird people who want to stick their noses into other people's business. I think instead of focusing on the fact that you have two people who want to raise a child together, what, they do is they just revert to bigotry and fear mongering, and homophobia. And instead, what they should focus on is the fact that these people want to raise a child together. It's a noble thing. And because there are plenty of kids who grow up in quote unquote traditional families who aren't, shall we say, perfect too, though, kids like that also go through growing pains. So they also deal with parents who divorce. They also deal with family conflict. So to try to blame any issues that kids may have on queer folks who want to have kids is just bullshit and lazy, to be perfectly honest. Why don't we focus on if people are actually good parents instead of assuming that they're not going to be good parents or that they're, not good for kids because of their sexual orientation? It's just really lazy. Another thing that stood out to me was India Farah starting out at 12 years old and Alexis Mateo knowing that she wanted to be in entertainment at 12. My mind will never understand that because at 12, I was still playing with Lego and watching cartoons. I still do. In India's case, she said that with the support of her family and her friends, she got through how tough it was growing up gay, and that drag also allows her to be more social and outgoing. I don't know how kids do that, but it's incredible, to know that they want to do something at such an early age. I had a lip singing talent show performance in my junior high to Jodeci's Lately with my best friend Anton and our friend Diego back in the 7th or 8th grade. So I was around 12 or 13. And I was a nervous wreck. Even though a part of me wanted to do it, I was nervous as hell. So I couldn't imagine being a 14-year-old, and having the guts to perform in drag at such an early age. And you're not fully developed in your confidence yet. At least I wasn't. And then where bullying at that age can run rampant, and some kids can be so cruel towards just about anybody, let alone if you're young and you're queer. So that speaks a lot about, or to me it speaks a lot about India Farah's and Alexis's strengths as human beings at such an early age. I know for sure I wouldn't have had the confidence to dress up in drag at 14, just to say that again, because I could barely do it. The talent show, we wore white jeans and a black tank top. We thought we looked so cool. And one of the last things that kind of stands out to me was the Queen, Mimi First, said that drag is empowering. And then Stacey Lane Matthews, who again was from the Bible Belt, and she's the one that said, we're people too and we deserve respect. And just a reminder, RuPaul said in a previous season, quote, the first time a man puts on a wig, some makeup, and a pair of heels and prances out that door is the ultimate act of courage. If you don't think it's courage, if you don't think that doing that is brave, if you don't think that takes guts, then I challenge you to do it. You won't turn gay, I promise. But do it to see if you can handle the stares, the judging eyes, the hate, the homophobia, and whatever else hateful homophobes are going to throw your way. See if you can deal with it, then you'll understand or learn to appreciate how courageous drag queens are and people in the queer community, period, because they deal with the hatred and the bigotry all the time. Extra, extra. I got to come up with a better name for this portion of the podcast. But anyways, back in the news from last week is Shit Human of the Week, Valentina Gomez, the Republican candidate running for Secretary of State in Missouri, of all places. This week, she's railing on the LGBT plus churches, or friendly churches, who she's accusing of promoting, quote, satanic and pedophile garbage, and also inciting violence by saying that she will not, quote, turn the other cheek. I will not let Jesus Christ be mocked. All this satanic and pedophile garbage in the Olympics, in our churches, and in our government will end when Christians and Catholics start fighting back. And if this lands me in jail, then so be it. Screw your gay garbage. I'm coming for all the pedophiles this flag represents. Unquote. Of course, this tough person that she is, she then posts a picture of herself posing with a rifle. Okay, first off, the Olympics opening ceremony hoopla is just a distraction. Okay, we've got Christians and Catholics crying foul over some non-story because they want to make everything about themselves. In an article from The Guardian written by Betsy Reed, the creative director of the opening ceremony, Thomas Jolly, said that Thomas Jolly said that Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper wasn't my inspiration. I think it was pretty clear. There's Dionysus who arrives at the table. He's the god of feasting, of wine, and the father of Sequana. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The goddess of the river Seine or Seine. End quote. So the opening ceremony was in fact inspired by the Feast of the Gods, painted by Dutch artist, I'm going to butcher their name too, Jan van Bijlert. So yeah, get over yourselves, man. Not everyone's world revolves around Christianity. And second of all, this woman, Valentina Gomez, is straight up inciting violence. She's posing with a rifle after, saying very threatening, bigoted things. This should alarm people more than a bunch of drag queens posing to celebrate the Olympics. I'm not Christian. In fact, I'm not religious at all, which I've mentioned before on the podcast, but it looks to me that she needs to go reevaluate her faith, because I don't need to go to church to know that Jesus has better things to do than worry about a bunch of drag queens. She really thinks posing with a rifle and being a homophobic bigot makes her look strong. Strength doesn't come from posing with guns and acting all tough. Strength to me comes from empathy, love, and showing compassion to people. So the only garbage I see is Valentina Gomez, who is a garbage human being. This is new. I wanted to mention that you can now contribute to Straight Guy Queer Eye if you find this podcast meaningful and valuable to you. You can go to patreon.com/SGQE, $2 a month if you want to buy me a coffee. I write, produce Straight Guy Queer Eye all by my lonesome self. All the equipment is my own, so any little bit helps. I am working on or higher tier packages that'll get you things like early access to the podcast, as well as the ability to give input or suggestions into episode ideas, maybe a monthly newsletter. I hate writing. That would be such a bad thing for me to do, or lazy thing for me, or I'd be lazy about it, maybe access to bloopers, priority to ask questions in any future interviews that may be on the podcast. That's the goal. And other fun things to come, or to be determined. TBD. And other fun things to come and or TBD. And just so you know, I plan on donating 15% of all tiers to the ACLU Drag Fund. Because it's important to help out organizations such as that who protect the queer community and help people to understand that they are cherished and loved in this world. Okay, so if you're new to Straight Guy Queer Eye, or even if you've been listening for a long time and enjoying the show and what we bring, please download this episode, subscribe to the podcast, and give us a 5-star rating wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe down below on YouTube. It's free to you, but will help out the channel. Share it with 5 people you know so that we can spread the word on the show. Socials, follow Straight Guy Queer Eye on Instagram at SGQE Podcast. You can follow me on my personal Instagram at Hello Paul Yen, although I am not on it or active on it much at all. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave comments, suggestions, and feedback down in the comments section below. That's it for this episode. Remember, be human, be kind.